We are live, and I did remember. Thank you.
There's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I said it with my eyes, but I didn't want to say anything out loud this time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Said it with your eyes.
well, top of the morning to you on this very special St. Patrick's Day
Oh.
It is St.
episode.
Patrick's Day.
This is Literary Roadhouse. One short story, once a week. I'm Andy.
I'm Anais.
And bringing up the rear, I'm Gerald.
I like the long pause because you weren't sure, even though two of us had gone already.
There's only three
There's only
options.
you.
Two have been exhausted.
All right.
This week we read Geminoid by Malena Salazar Maciá. What a story. That's true.
Wow.
I can absolutely say that.
Andy,
In your opinion.
I'm going to do the summary.
No, I'm going to do the summary. I got it. This is the story about a Geminoid named Geminoid by Julian, their medical human.
What? I feel, first of all, they're not called Geminoids. All right.
I don't know. It seems like they're
They
called
might be.
Geminoids.
Anyway, continue.
They talk about some replacement Geminoids in the lowercase g, but this one gets named Geminoid.
Well, yeah. All right. Continue.
It's a medical android that's hosting cloned organs for this sick kid. He needs a new heart, and he's dying. And inexplicably, the Geminoid robot has specific orders that they can't breach, and then their primary directive is to obey orders from the human they're cloning the organs from, no matter what. And apparently that counts even if they're contraindicated by the other orders. So that allows this Geminoid to reprogram themselves because Julian orders them to. Which is like a really bad setup. I don't know.
I don't know. That's not.
I don't know why you would make
Okay,
this
we
sort
can
of
use it.
operation.
Can we get to the summary without the commentary so we can do the commentary after?
Yeah. So the Geminoid and Julian bond and like become friends instead of just a robot organ host and a sick kid. And then Julian wants to go do parkour, so they do, and then they fall off. And Geminoid gets hurt. And then Julian's like, no, I'll save you, Geminoid. And then Julian dies, because of course. And then Geminoid flenses all of Julian's skin and puts Julian's skin on top of their own mechanical body so that they can pass for Julian and say that the Geminoid died, and they get a new robot at the end. Ta-da.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So we know how Andy felt about the story. Gerald, how did you feel about the story?
I felt better about it the first time I read through it. The second time I thought, because I tell you what, I thought, don't interrupt.
I'm agreeing.
I thought it's what? Who are you? Have you been replaced? There's yeah, because I thought, oh, this is a sort of clever, extrapolation of humanoids and robots and all that sort of thing. I thought, yeah, but for some reason, I just feel just a bit, meh. It didn't really do anything special. It said, there's this. I think it took a premise and an idea, and said, here's this premise and idea, and we can grow things, and then there's a little twist in the tale where he becomes the boy, even though he's been the boy and gone to school and stuff, and then they get a robot to sort of fix him, and that's, I don't know. Wasn't a bad story. It just wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. When I first finished this story, I was really excited. I was like, oh, that was a fun little story. And the more and more I thought about it, I was like, something's not hanging together right. And maybe I'm dumb, and that's fine. I can be dumb. But I didn't really get like, what's the thesis about this? It's like a bunch of stuff happens and the robot replaces the boy at the end. And I think that's a good thing, maybe, but like the kid died, but I don't know. How does the story even want me to feel about this?
Yeah.
What is the
Yeah.
where's the story interested? Like what's the point? What's the point? What are we doing? Is anything a metaphor for anything, or is this just here's some neat sci-fi ideas kind of kicking around? And it's sort of fun.
Yeah.
And they're neat ideas.
Yeah.
I
think
messed with it,
that the writer could have done more. Yeah, I think they could have done more with it and taken this basic premise and saying, here's an idea, and what happens, let's extrapolate and let's do some analysis, let's do some sort of stuff, some psychology with it. But it's just da da da, and then this happens, and then that happens, and then it's over. It just
And I think it doesn't need to be that different to be something I would have felt a lot better about. But I don't know what its guiding principles are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sort of like hanging back a little because I feel a little bad. Whenever there's like a new author, you know what I'm saying? Like someone's like trying to like, you feel a little bad going in too deep. But I feel a bit like they were let down in a bit by Clark's World, because even on my first read through, totally blank, there was a lot of internal logic that didn't make sense. Like the whole idea that the android doesn't know what fear is, but like right at the very beginning, like right at the top, before you learn that it doesn't know what fear is, it's I'm trying to find the exact line, which is oh right, I would never change a lot of my programming. I know what it would mean. I know what the administrators would do to me. So you do know fear, right? And you do have some and then later, and then the other thing is like the robot's whole purpose is to keep someone alive and not die. And then later is like, what is die? That kind of stuff is something that Clark's World reading this should have like, that is what bothered me more than anything else. It's like just a casual read through before you even get to metaphor or anything else, or like the whole idea of can't feel pain but then is rubbing the bruise later. Why are you rubbing the bruise? Why is the Geminoid rubbing the place that's bruised from when the kid hit him with the baseball bat? There's things like that even on a first read through I was clocking that took me out of it. I'm like, the internal logic of how this bot works isn't consistent. And then that's before you get to all the other stuff. So that's why I'm like, I feel bad coming at like a young up and coming, I don't know if they're young or not, but like a new person, like writer trying to make it, because like the publication should have caught that on first read through. I was catching it.
Yep. And it's like, and again, I wouldn't actually be this upset if I didn't enjoy so many other parts of it so much. If this was a bad story, I could just say, well, that was dumb.
Yeah, it's not exactly.
It's not bad.
It feels like a first draft that got published. That's what it feels like to me. With more editing, you would have caught a lot of this stuff. And then in answering the question, do they or do they not know fear? What stops them from doing it? Once you start asking those questions by finding these things, then the story starts to get fleshed out, and then you start finding the meaning. That's kind of what, was kind of getting at me. I don't know if it is a first draft, but it kind of had that feeling because there was a lot of things that just, even on a first pass,
and it
like, wait.
Sort of felt like we were like doing like a frame narrative right at the beginning. Is that me too? Am I reading too much into it? It sort of looked like here's the robot telling us the story at the end of its adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then when the adventure
I caught that
ended,
on the second read through.
It did not connect back to the beginning.
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the beginning also had this exactly like as if it was afterwards, but it didn't. Yeah. Exactly.
And it's like, oh, I would never change my programming. And then like in the middle, I was like, I super changed my programming. Like, are you telling us the story that you're telling the administrators? Like, is this the story you're reporting back? Because you're like, and then I stopped making reports. Like, then what?
Yes.
You stop making reports halfway through. You absolutely change your programming.
Yeah.
I feel bad tearing into
really,
it.
If he's there's a several second delay on my end, I think, seems like.
I see.
So yeah, I think it's like, why have a complete humanoid person if they're just if it's just for his heart. It's not like there's anything else going into it other than the pure functioning of a heart-based piece of meat.
Well, so here's the thing I'd say. You wouldn't ever have asked that question if some of these other parts came together, right?
Yep.
If you're like, well, that's whatever goofy thing I need to make this premise. I don't know why we need a whole android to keep this one heart going, but like that's the story I'm telling. So as long as everything else hangs together, you're like, yeah, and obviously the most reasonable way to keep a human heart going is in an android. Like I would just go with that if I loved everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also, even at the very end, the whole thing where it's like the story of like becoming more of a real boy, right? Getting rid of the carbon fiber
We're
and putting
doing a
on skin.
Pinocchio.
Yeah, like Pinocchio aspect of it could have gone a bit deeper. Like now we're starting to get towards something, but even that part of it was very, again, like on my first read through, I had like what, and I read it like a few times. I'm like, am I failing to read? Is it my reading comprehension? So like, but no, again, that's why I'm like failed by editors. Like, the carbon protection. So he gets rid of the cultured skin and the carbon protection from every inch of my body. I lost a lot of sensors in the process. Okay, a lot of sensors we're told was in the skin. That makes sense. Although I'm sure I forgot to remove a piece or another. Sure. And looked at myself in the broken mirror. Looked like a skinned human, right? Only muscle, fat, and blood in sight. Okay. The brain microchip, all its connections, and the molecular microprinters were inside my organs. I couldn't take any of that from me, so I would have to get used to eating and drinking. That sent me for a loop because it was like, wait a minute. So you do or you don't have all your other organs except your skin. That's the part I couldn't get my mind around.
Yep.
Like that was just
Right.
so how are you going to eat and drink if you don't have
inside of your stomach?
Yes, the thing that was feeding you in those organs, but you still have those same organs that you need to eat and drink. That threw me for a loop. I'm like, hey, did I stop? Like, is my reading comprehension shot? What is going on? But that's why I'm saying, like, reading it, I was more upset with editors. Like, I'm like, yeah. I felt my first read through, I think should have been caught.
And I think that had they been keeping the Geminoid as a replacement for the boy, so that when he died, they would somehow make the Geminoid the boy, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Then there's a logic to it, and it sort of kind of makes sense then. And you know, he's clearly boy-like enough to go to school, and nobody raises questions or asks questions or anything. So if the thing that's missing is the essence of the boy's life, you know, the brain or the soul or something, if they could transfer that on the boy's death to him, now we have a sort of logical story, I think.
Kind of, yeah. There's also a big part of me that's like, why are no adults or other children noticing that this is not the kid? But, you know, whatever. That's not the story we're following. We're following the Geminoid story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But, and at the very end, when then the Geminoid, now Pinocchio real boy, gets his own Geminoid and he gets emotional about it and it gets classified as cry. We already know he knows what cry is, but okay. String of salt waters ran from my eyes. I think it could be classified as cry. Now all of a sudden it's like, so are you feeling some kind of sympathy or pity or some type of way about the fate of this? But that wasn't strung throughout the whole story. There was at no point where the Geminoid ever felt bad about his lot in life. So yeah, that.
And also, like, obviously they're not gonna end up replacing the Geminoid's heart is fine. At some point they're gonna do a test on the Geminoid's heart. Even if he continues to fool them all and pass for a real boy, the Geminoid does not need a heart replacement.
Yeah, well, at some point he's going to get scanned and caught.
Because the replacements, it's already scheduled for 6 months or something. Yeah, the donation will take place in 6 months. So it's scheduled. So in 6 months' time, something's going to happen there. Somebody's going to say, "Hang on."
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, I really had fun sort of on my first blush, like, run through. I was like, neat. So many neat things, and it was fun.
I kept getting interrupted by the internal logic getting broken.
That's fair. There's a couple points where I was like, that seems wrong. It seems like just an error.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In the beginning with the framing, where it felt like a framing device, you're telling me you're afraid, why you're afraid of changing your programming language, and then there's this like bit about other Geminoids and androids being attacked and being thrown on subway tracks and hacked at with chainsaws. It's like, so if you're telling me this, and you're telling me like it feels like you already do have fear. No, okay, like there's just that kind of stuff that rubbed a bit.
And I was checking to see if there's any translated notes, like if this was in translation, but at least Clark's World doesn't credit any translator on this one. I would like to blame as many people as possible and just sort of diffuse the blame. Like, oh yeah, maybe it was poorly edited and badly translated.
I have no idea. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was just thinking of another part where I got stuck, which was he's talking about after how a bunch of androids are being attacked by people who are afraid. Despite the occasional Geminoid destruction, the statistics began to show other results. When the human reached his critical point of health and no suitable organ donors appeared, they mourned their Geminoids. That already bothered me. Why are they looking for suitable organ donors if they already have a Geminoid to mourn? That already confused me. So is it just any organ, or is it a specific organ, like in the case of Julian? All right. And then they begged to see our faces again, their own faces, which hid zeros and ones. Right, so that they want to see their own faces again in the Geminoids. Therefore, my kind was improved. The company decided to adopt the physical appearance of its patients. But you just told me that the previous model looked like them. That kind of stuff really, at my first read through, I was just tripping the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I feel bad, but...
And again, that doesn't... In terms of the well, like you said, in terms of first draft writing,
yeah,
there's so much really good stuff in here.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. But it kind of needs to decide, is this about a Geminoid that doesn't like being an android and wants to be a real boy and doesn't realize this towards the end?
Is it a triumph that Pinocchio's become a real boy?
Is it not?
Right. A mistake they mourn?
Yeah. Or is it more like continuing to keep Julian alive by becoming Julian? That'd be interesting. Like the idea of that to the android that the actual body doesn't matter, and if he can actually continue to be Julian, then he has achieved his prime directive of keeping Julian alive. But that's not there either.
I mean, all things being equal, Julian died doing parkour, so like, that's something that might have happened to Julian no matter what, regardless of his heart condition.
Yeah, I mean,
Kid liked climbing and jumping off stuff.
Yeah, but he didn't. He died specifically because of the heart attack.
Yeah, I bet you anything that fall would not have been great for him.
No, yeah. But he wouldn't have gone there had he not felt overconfident because he had a Geminoid.
Right. No, like, true enough. That's true. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think for me, the story can't decide whether the Geminoid is a way of creating a spare part for the human, or whether it is a replacement for a human. And I think it might have worked better if it had been set up. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point, that they are actually replacements for the human when the human dies, but the human is told it's just a cultivar for the organ. Maybe
but so is the Geminoid, apparently. The Geminoid is also told that, as far as the Geminoid knows.
Yeah.
I did like the one line that I thought was going to be the thesis and like sort of is, but doesn't do anything, which is, we exist and this cannot go wrong. I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's a very nice way of telling me this will absolutely go wrong.
But then it doesn't really.
It doesn't really, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Dead Kid is not great.
Right.
But
it's not a general problem of
because I don't know how I feel about that dead kid. Like, that kid really seemed like he wanted the Geminoid to replace him.
Did he?
I don't know.
He wanted the Geminoid to do the boring stuff for him and to do
the but also then the exciting stuff.
Yeah, so you could film it and live. He wanted to say it was him, right? He used to do parkour. He can't anymore. Well, you're going to do it, and then we're going to put it on the networks. Yeah. And then, yeah. No, the kid was being a kid. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to keep
Yeah,
trashing it. I think like we've made our point. I feel bad.
Well, I don't feel like too much. These are also the things I liked about it, is the thing, right?
Hmm.
They're just sort of disjointed. Each one of these is something I like. And I don't know how it connects to the other parts of the same story.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I have decided now. I have decided that the story is actually about replacement human beings. I've now gone full one way or the other.
We've done this before.
Yes.
Yeah. We've done this before when we don't like stories. We're like, we invent the story we like.
yeah.
And what's wrong with that? And I quite like the stuff when they're talking about talking in general about what the whole stuff and people, the objections. Can you trust a dead thing? And they bug that stuff, right? These organs contain chips, so the company can monitor us or kill us on demand. It's quite a sort of the COVID thing with the vaccines and stuff like that. I quite like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And equally stupid. They could put a microchip in a human donated organ. So I don't.
Right. They can put a microchip in anything.
Yeah. They can just microchip it when they have you cut open.
Also, your phone tracks you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
No. That's terrible. and interesting, the last of those the last of those conspiracy theories, it's a conspiracy to replace us with robots. Aha. Maybe they were right. Aha.
Gerald's found his thesis.
Wow.
There it says it in black and white. It's true.
There's a podcast I like, and they were doing a bit of like asking like questions, like Jeopardy style questions for like Jeopardy, like things that are putting the world in peril in Jeopardy. And one of the category was AI, the robots are taking over or something like that. I thought it was pretty funny.
Really?
I kept thinking of that with this. All right. So, should we rate it? I feel like I don't want to keep piling on.
Yeah. Just one of the things as I was describing this to Karina, she said, "Well, so how does this feel? How does the story compare to the masterwork AI, artificial intelligence?" And I was like, "Oh, poorly. There's no sexy Jude Law robot, so why not include a sexy Jude Law robot to all authors everywhere? Think about it."
Think about it. I will say, as we were talking about this, was a part of me. I was like, "Wait, what if the internal logic messing up was intentional and it's supposed to be a clue that this particular Geminoid?" Like, nope, I'm just trying to I'm trying to make it work. That would have to be signaled.
The story.
No, honestly, the story a little bit supported that. I had the exact same thought. There was like a part where they're like, "Oh, I don't remember the sentence. It's not worth digging into." But like, that could have been something if it had leaned into that more.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it didn't quite lean into any of these equally good ideas.
Yes, the good things. And if the guy if the boy had a girlfriend or something, so make him a bit older or something like that, so he's got a girlfriend, and so he has the problem of wondering whether the girlfriend is the real girlfriend or she's been replaced by the robot. But I'm doing that same story again. So
right now you're just Blade Runner.
You're just writing a different story. Yeah. You're introducing
come on. Is this a Blade Runner or is this a Pinocchio? What are we doing?
Yeah. All right. Shall we rate?
Okay. Let's rate. Oh, thank you. I have tea. I'm going to rate at I don't know. I was going to come quite high. I was going to Yes, I'm down to I was at a 5. I'm down to 4 now. It was okay. It was entertaining.
I think I'm going to rate it you say 2?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I didn't even have the first read through fun time. My first read through, I was stuck the whole time.
Your first read through got disjointed already.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 3. I liked so many of its parts really a lot. And then they didn't come together into a cohesive whole.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Next week, we are reading The Sensitivity Reader by Andrew O'Hagan. Before you go, cultivate your meat opinion on this story in the test tube that is our Facebook discussion group, the Literary Roadhouse Readers. Are you terrified of androids and AI and clones? Keep those fears stoked by reading more sci-fi with us. Keep this podcast going by leaving a review of Literary Roadhouse wherever you get your podcasts, and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Literary Roadhouse. Every bit helps. And as always, share this podcast with the administrators reading your weekly reports. Until next time, read a good story.